Nothing says happy family like your wife and mother getting wine drunk on boxed Merlot before the cake is cut. I'm Tom Grady, 41 years old, IT project manager, and apparently the world's most oblivious husband. At least, that's what I discovered at my daughter Zoe's first birthday party. The living room of our Briarwood Lane house was packed with relatives, neighbors, and Elise's work friends. Pink balloons bobbed against the ceiling, like tiny prisoners trying to escape, which, in hindsight, should have been my first clue about the theme of the day. "Tommy, can you grab more wine from the kitchen?" Elise called out, her cheeks already flushed. My wife of 3 years looked stunning as always. Blonde hair, perfectly styled, designer dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She worked in PR for a downtown firm, which basically meant she was professionally trained to make lies sound like truth. "Sure thing," I replied, stepping over scattered wrapping paper and dodging my 1-year-old daughter Zoe as she crawled between guests' legs. At least someone was having fun. In the kitchen, I could hear Elise's voice carrying from the living room, louder than usual. Wine always made her chatty. I was pulling another bottle from the cabinet when her words stopped me cold. "Kelly, I have to tell someone," Elise was saying to her best friend, that gossipy enabler who'd been encouraging Elise's girls' nights out for months. "Tom's such a good dad, but he has no idea." "No idea about what?" Kelly's voice, equally wine-soaked. "About Zoe. She's not actually his." The wine bottle slipped from my hand, but I caught it before it hit the floor. My heart, however, wasn't so lucky. "What do you mean?" Kelly whispered, but not quietly enough. "I used my ex-husband Dave's reproductive cell from the fertility clinic. Dave died in that motorcycle accident 2 years ago, but his samples were still frozen. Tom thinks we did IVF with his reproductive cell because of his low count, but I switched the samples. Zoe's really Dave's daughter." The kitchen walls seemed to close in around me. Dave Brennan, Elise's first husband, the love of her life who died before I met her, the guy whose photos she still kept in a box under our bed, thinking I didn't know. "But Tom's name is on the birth certificate," Kelly said. "Legal father, not biological. He's basically a very expensive reproductive cell donor who pays the mortgage." Elise laughed, that tinkling sound I used to find charming. "Dave was the real man in my life. Tom's just convenient." I stood there holding that wine bottle, listening to my wife explain how I'd been living a lie for over a year. Every diaper change, every sleepless night, every moment of joy watching Zoe take her first steps, all based on a fraud. "Does anyone else know?" Kelly asked. "Just you and my mom helped me with the paperwork at the clinic. Oh, and Brandon knows." Brandon Holt, Elise's business consultant, who'd been coming around the house more often lately. Tall, muscled, the kind of guy who probably never had to worry about low reproductive cell counts or lying wives. "Speaking of Brandon," Kelly giggled, "when are you going to tell Tom about—" "Shh," Elise cut her off. "Not here, but soon. Once I figure out the divorce details." "Divorce details?" "Right, because why stop at paternity fraud when you can go for the full betrayal package?" I walked back into the living room carrying that wine bottle like it was a bomb. Everyone was singing happy birthday to Zoe, who was sitting in her high chair, chocolate cake smeared across her cherubic face. She looked up at me with those big brown eyes, Dave's eyes I realized now, and clapped her tiny hands. "There's Daddy," my mother Evelyn called out, raising her wine glass. "Tommy, you must be so proud. Zoe's going to be a heartbreaker just like her mama." If only she knew how accurate that statement was. I smiled and nodded, playing the part of the happy father while my world crumbled around me. Elise caught my eye and winked, probably thinking I was just emotional about our daughter's birthday. She had no idea I'd heard everything. The party continued for another hour. I watched Elise laugh and mingle, accepting congratulations on our beautiful family. I watched Brandon arrive fashionably late, kissing Elise's cheek a little too long while shaking my hand with that firm grip guys like him always use to establish dominance. "Great party, Tom," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "You're a lucky man." "Yeah," I replied, looking straight at him. "Lucky me." After the last guest left, I helped clean up while Elise put Zoe down for her nap. The house felt different now, like a movie set after filming wrapped, all facade, no substance. "That was fun," Elise said, kicking off her heels. "Though I think I had too much wine. Did I say anything embarrassing?" "Nothing I didn't already know," I said, which was technically true. I'd suspected something was wrong for months. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way she looked at me sometimes like I was a stranger she was stuck with. That night, after Elise fell asleep, I sat in Zoe's nursery watching her sleep. She was beautiful, innocent, completely unaware that her entire existence was built on lies. I loved her. That hadn't changed, but everything else had. I spent the next 3 hours quietly packing a single suitcase. I took only what I needed: clothes, laptop, important documents, and Zoe's favorite stuffed elephant that she always calmed down for when I held it. I left behind the birth certificate after using correction fluid to remove my name from the father line. Before leaving, I wrote a simple note. I heard everything at the party. We're done. Don't contact me. I placed it on the kitchen counter next to the empty wine bottles. Seemed fitting somehow. By sunrise, I was in a cheap motel across town, staring at my phone as it buzzed with increasingly frantic texts from Elise. Tom, where are you? Your note doesn't make sense. What did you hear? We need to talk. Tom, please answer. I can explain everything. You're being ridiculous. Think about Zoe. Tom, answer your damn phone. 53 messages in total. I read every single one, watching my wife's panic escalate from confusion to anger to desperation. It was almost entertaining in a twisted way. You know it's over when your wife admits in public that you're the world's saddest reproductive cell donor, then acts surprised when you actually leave. I turned off my phone and ordered room service. Time to figure out what came next. The law office of Karp & Associates smelled like leather and disappointment. Mr. Karp himself was a thin man in his 60s who looked like he'd seen every type of family disaster imaginable and wasn't impressed by any of them. Paternity fraud, he said, reviewing my case notes. It's more common than people think, but proving it legally is complicated. You're listed as the father on the birth certificate. Because my wife forged the fertility clinic paperwork, I said. I have a recording of her admitting it. I'd gone back to the house while Elise was at work, using my key one last time to retrieve some hidden recording devices I'd installed in the living room months ago. Originally, I'd been trying to catch her cheating with Brandon. Instead, I'd caught something much worse. This recording was made without her consent in your own home. Our home. Technically legal in this state. Mr. Karp nodded approvingly. Good. We can use this. But I have to warn you, this is going to get ugly. Your wife will fight back, and family courts generally favor mothers. She committed fraud, used a dead man's reproductive cell, and let me believe I was the father. Emotionally, you're absolutely right. Legally, it's more complex. We'll need DNA tests, medical records from the clinic, and we'll have to prove intentional deception rather than a medical mix-up. I left his office with a legal strategy and a bill that would drain my savings. But it felt good to finally be taking action instead of playing the fool. That afternoon, I got a call from my mother. Tommy, what's this nonsense about you leaving Elise? That poor girl is beside herself. That poor girl lied about our daughter's paternity, Mom. Oh, honey, you're being paranoid. Elise loves you. She told me all about your jealousy issues and how you've been accusing her of cheating. Of course, Elise had already gotten to her. My mother had always liked Elise more than me anyway. She admitted it, Mom. I have proof. You have misunderstandings. Marriage takes work, Tommy. Your father and I had our problems too, but we didn't run away like children. Dad didn't have to worry about you using another man's reproductive cell to get pregnant. Don't be crude, and don't be stupid. Elise is a good woman, and Zoe needs her father. I'm not Zoe's father, that's the point. You raised her for a year. That makes you her father regardless of biology. The conversation went downhill from there. By the end, my own mother was lecturing me about responsibility while defending the woman who'd been lying to me for years. Family loyalty at its finest. 2 days later, I was leaving my new apartment when a black SUV came screaming around the corner. I had maybe 3 seconds to recognize Elise behind the wheel before diving behind a parked car. The SUV clipped my leg as I rolled, sending me tumbling across the sidewalk. Pain shot through my ankle as I watched Elise's SUV disappear around the next corner. A neighbor came running out of her house, phone already in hand. I saw everything, Mrs. Culpepper shouted. She was the neighborhood gossip, which for once worked in my favor. That crazy woman tried to run you down. I got her license plate. The ambulance ride gave me time to think between waves of pain medication. Elise had just escalated from emotional warfare to attempted vehicular homicide. Either she was more desperate than I'd thought or more dangerous. At the hospital, Detective Lyle took my statement while a doctor wrapped my sprained ankle and treated my road rash. Your wife did this? Detective Lyle was a weathered man in his 50s who looked skeptical of everything. Soon-to-be ex-wife. We're in the middle of a divorce. Any witnesses? Mrs. Culpepper saw the whole thing. She got the license plate. We'll need to verify the SUV's ownership and get a statement from Mrs. Culpepper. In the meantime, you might want to consider a restraining order. I want to press charges. Attempted attack with a deadly weapon. Detective Lyle raised an eyebrow. That's a serious charge. You sure you want to go that route? Domestic disputes can get complicated. She tried to run me over with a 2-ton SUV. How complicated does it need to be? 3 hours later, Elise was in handcuffs, being led out of her office while her coworkers watched in shock. The local news picked up the story. PR executive arrested for attempted homicide of estranged husband. If she wanted to end me, she should have let me eat her cooking. But the victory was short-lived. While I was in the hospital, Elise's mother, Judith, had picked up Zoe from daycare. When I called to arrange visitation, Judith's icy voice cut through the phone. You're not seeing that child until this mess is sorted out legally. Elise made mistakes, but you abandoned your family. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm protecting myself from a woman who tried to commit vehicular homicide. You're a vindictive little man, Tom Grady. Elise deserves better. Elise deserves prison. My own mother called that evening not to check on my injuries, but to scold me for pressing charges against family. She could have ended me, Mom. She was upset. You hurt her by leaving. I hurt her? She's been lying to me for over a year. Marriage is about forgiveness, Tommy. Your father forgave me for plenty of things. Like what? A long pause. That's not important now. What's important is that you're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding when someone tries to run you over. She wasn't trying to end you. She was trying to get your attention. The logic was so twisted it gave me a headache worse than the painkillers could handle. The next morning, Mr. Karp called with bad news. Your wife made bail. Her lawyer is claiming emotional distress and temporary insanity due to your abandonment. They're also filing countercharges. What kind of countercharges? Domestic mistreat, emotional cruelty, and child abandonment. They're saying you've been psychologically tormenting her for months, recording her private conversations, and that you left without regard for your daughter's welfare. That's all lies. Of course it is, but they have witnesses. What witnesses? Your mother, for one. She's prepared to testify that you've been acting erratically and that Elise came to her in fear for her safety. My own mother was going to testify against me. The hits just kept coming. There's more, Mr. Karp continued. They're claiming the recording is fake, doctored to make your wife look bad. And they're requesting full custody of Zoe pending DNA results. Can they do that? They can try. We'll fight it, but you need to prepare for a long battle. And Tom, it's going to get worse before it gets better. He was right. That afternoon, I found flyers posted around my apartment complex with my photo and the words, "Wife Beater," in bold red letters. Someone had also keyed my car and slashed 2 tires. Elise wasn't just fighting back. She was going scorched earth. 2 could play that game. The flyers were just the beginning. Within a week, Elise and her team had launched a full-scale character assassination that would have impressed a political campaign manager. My boss called me into his office on Monday morning with a concerned expression and a stack of printed emails. Tom, I've been getting some disturbing messages about you, he said, sliding the papers across his desk. Allegations of domestic violence, stalking behavior, and emotional instability. I scanned the emails. They were from anonymous accounts, but the writing style was pure Elise. Professional, concerned, and completely fabricated. These are lies, Dave. My wife tried to run me over with her car. She's the one facing criminal charges. I understand there are 2 sides to every story, but we can't have this kind of controversy affecting the workplace. I'm going to have to put you on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. You're suspending me based on anonymous emails? I'm protecting the company, and honestly, Tom, you look terrible. When's the last time you slept? He had a point. The stress was showing. I'd lost 15 pounds, had bags under my eyes, and my hands shook slightly from too much caffeine and too little food. I looked exactly like someone having a breakdown, which was probably part of Elise's plan. 2 weeks paid leave, Dave continued. Get some help, sort out your personal life, and we'll reassess. I walked out of the office knowing my career was probably over. Elise had played this perfectly. Make me look unstable, then point to my instability as proof of her allegations. But she'd made one mistake. She'd underestimated how much I'd learned about her over 3 years of marriage. That afternoon, I drove to Brandon's gym, Iron Paradise, a chrome and glass monument to masculine insecurity. Brandon was in the middle of training a client when I walked in, but he spotted me immediately. Tom, hey man, how are you holding up? His concern sounded genuine, which made it even more insulting. Oh, living the dream? My wife tries to end me, my job suspends me, and my mother thinks I'm the problem. Just another Tuesday in paradise? Brandon glanced around nervously. Listen, maybe we should talk privately. Why? Worried your clients might hear something interesting? I'd brought a small digital recorder, the same type I'd used at home. This time, I wasn't hiding it. Is that thing recording? Brandon asked. Just documenting our conversation, for legal purposes. Turn it off. I don't think so. See, Brandon, I know about you and Elise. I know about the yoga retreats that weren't yoga retreats. I know about the business consultations that happened in hotel rooms. And I know you've been helping her plan this whole smear campaign. Brandon's jaw tightened. You're paranoid, man. Elise is just a friend. Friends don't usually know about paternity fraud. That hit home. Brandon's eyes widened slightly before he recovered. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Just like you don't know that Elise has been embezzling money from her PR firm to pay for your little getaways. That was a guess, but Brandon's expression told me I'd hit the target. You're fishing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Want to bet your gym membership on it? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken from Elise's computer before leaving, bank statements showing large cash withdrawals that coincided with their trips. This is harassment, Brandon said, but he was sweating now. This is evidence, and there's more where it came from. I left him standing there, probably calculating how much trouble he was in. Phase 1 of my counterattack was complete. That evening, I called Natalie Holt, Brandon's ex-wife. I'd found her contact information in Brandon's gym records, which he'd carelessly left accessible on his office computer. Mrs. Holt, this is Tom Grady. I think we need to talk. About Brandon? What did that coward do now? It's more about what he's doing. With my wife. Natalie agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. And she was an attractive woman in her early 40s, with a kind of bitter edge that comes from being betrayed by someone you trusted. Brandon cheated on me with half the women at his gym, she said, stirring her latte with unnecessary force. I tried to warn his current girlfriend, but she didn't want to hear it. His current girlfriend is my wife, and she's been lying to me about our daughter's paternity. Natalie's eyes lit up with interest. Really? That's delicious. What do you need from me? Evidence, photos, documents, anything that shows Brandon's pattern of behavior? I have boxes of evidence, phone records, hotel receipts, photos I hired a private investigator to take. I kept it all in case I needed it for alimony disputes. Would you be willing to share some of that? Honey, I'd pay you to use it. Brandon destroyed my life, and now he's destroying yours. Let's return the favor. We spent the next 2 hours going through Natalie's revenge files. She had enough dirt on Brandon to bury him professionally and personally. Photos of him with multiple women, financial records showing his pattern of using women for money, and most importantly, a recording of him bragging to a friend about his stupid married girlfriend who pays for everything. That's Elise, I said, recognizing the timeline. Probably. Brandon has a type. Successful women with low self-esteem and high bank balances. I left the coffee shop with a flash drive full of ammunition and a new ally in my war against Elise and Brandon. The next morning, I put my plan into action. I'd spent years managing IT projects, which meant I knew how to coordinate complex operations and manage multiple moving parts simultaneously. First, I created anonymous social media accounts and began posting Brandon's photos with other women, along with details about his cheating patterns. I tagged his gym, his clients, and every fitness influencer who'd ever promoted his business. Second, I sent the financial evidence to Elise's company's HR department, along with a detailed explanation of how she'd been embezzling to fund her affair. Third, I contacted Dirty Dale, a local blogger who specialized in exposing cheating spouses and corrupt businesses. For $500, he agreed to run a full expose on Brandon's gym and Elise's embezzlement. By noon, Brandon's gym was getting negative reviews faster than he could delete them. By evening, Elise had been escorted out of her office by security while HR launched an internal investigation. But I wasn't done yet. That night, I drove to Iron Paradise with a bag of supplies I'd bought at the hardware store. The gym's security system was basic, just cameras and an alarm that I'd learned to bypass during my brief career as a security consultant years ago. I spent an hour inside Brandon's precious gym, carefully executing my plan. I didn't break anything or steal anything. Instead, I rearranged things. Every motivational poster was replaced with printouts of Brandon's cheating photos. Every mirror had a sticky note with quotes from his bragging recording. and his prized BMW in the parking lot received a special treatment. Protein powder mixed with corn syrup poured into the gas tank, and cheater spray painted across the hood in bright red letters. I live-streamed the whole thing on social media, narrating like a nature documentary. Here we see the natural habitat of the suburban aggressor, carefully maintained to attract unsuspecting prey. Note the expensive equipment designed to display the aggressor's physical prowess while concealing his moral bankruptcy. The video went viral within hours. #Brandon the Betrayer was trending on 3 platforms by morning. When Brandon discovered the damage, his reaction was everything I'd hoped for. He called the police, but since I hadn't actually broken anything valuable and the spray paint was water-based, the charges were minimal. More importantly, his outraged phone calls to local news stations only brought more attention to his infidelity. "You destroyed my business!" he screamed when he confronted me at my apartment. "I exposed your business," I corrected. "There's a difference. This is harassment. This is consequences. You helped my wife destroy my life. I'm returning the favor." "She loves you, man. She's just confused. She loves my bank account and apparently dead men's reproductive cell." Brandon left, but not before promising to make me pay. I almost felt sorry for him. He still didn't understand that I had nothing left to lose, which made me infinitely more dangerous than he was. That night, my phone rang. It was my sister Patty calling from Oregon. "Tom, what the hell is going on? Mom called me crying, saying you've lost your mind?" "I found my mind, actually, for the first time in years. She says you're stalking Elise and her boyfriend." "I'm exposing them. There's a difference. Mom also says Elise might not make it through this. She's talking about hurting herself." That stopped me cold. I hadn't considered that Elise might be genuinely fragile under her manipulative exterior. "She tried to run me over with a car, Patty." "I know, but maybe she's desperate. Maybe she really does love you. She used another man's reproductive cell to get pregnant and let me believe I was the father. That's not love. It's not normal, but people do crazy things when they're scared of losing someone. Or when they're sociopaths. Tom, I'm worried about you. You sound different. Harder." She was right. I was different. The old Tom would have forgiven Elise, gone to counseling, and tried to work things out. The new Tom understood that some betrayals were unforgivable, and some people were simply toxic. "I'm fine, Patty. Better than fine. I'm finally seeing clearly. Just be careful. Revenge has a way of consuming people. So does being a doormat." After hanging up, I sat in my empty apartment, looking at the evidence spread across my kitchen table. Photos, documents, recordings, financial records. The complete destruction of 2 lives laid out like a battle plan. Patty was wrong about one thing. I wasn't being consumed by revenge. I was being liberated by it. The phone call came at 3 in the morning. My mother's voice was weak, shaky, nothing like the strong woman who'd raised me. "Tommy, I need you to come to the hospital." "What's wrong, Mom?" "It's cancer. Stage 4 pancreatic. The doctors say—" Her voice broke. "They say I don't have long." I was dressed and driving within 10 minutes, my war with Elise temporarily forgotten. Whatever our differences, my mother was still my mother. At the hospital, I found her looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, dwarfed by the medical equipment surrounding her bed. But her eyes were still sharp, still judgmental. "You look terrible," she said by way of greeting. "Thanks, Mom. You look great, too." "Don't be smart with me. I'm dying." "Don't be dramatic. You're tougher than cancer." She smiled despite herself. "I've been thinking about what you told me about Elise and the baby. And I helped her." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "At the fertility clinic. I was there when she made the arrangements. She was so scared, Tommy. Scared that she couldn't get pregnant. Scared that you'd leave her if she couldn't give you children." "So you helped her lie to me?" "I helped her give you what you wanted. A family. A family built on fraud. A family built on love. She loves you, Tommy. Maybe not the way you want to be loved, but she loves you." I stared at my dying mother, trying to process this betrayal. My own mother had conspired with my wife to deceive me about my daughter's paternity. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm dying, and I want you to forgive her. Forgive both of us." "You want me to forgive the woman who tried to run me over?" "I want you to forgive the woman who gave you a beautiful daughter and 3 years of happiness. 3 years of lies, 3 years of family. That has to count for something. It should have." In any normal situation, it would have. But nothing about this situation was normal. I can't, Mom. I can't forgive this. Then you're weaker than I raised you to be. Those were the last words my mother spoke to me. She died 2 days later, taking her secrets and her disappointment to the grave. The funeral was a nightmare wrapped in black clothing and false sympathy. Elise showed up with Brandon, both dressed appropriately and acting like mourners instead of the people who'd helped destroy my relationship with my mother. Tom, I'm so sorry for your loss, Elise said, approaching me at the graveside. She looked genuinely sad, which somehow made it worse. Don't, I said quietly. Just don't. She loved you. Even when she was angry with you, she loved you. She loved the idea of me. The version that would shut up and accept whatever you two decided was best for me. That's not true. She helped you forge the fertility clinic paperwork, Elise. She told me before she died. Elise's face went white. Tommy, I can explain. No more explanations. No more lies. We're done. What about Zoe? She needs her father. I'm not her father. You made that very clear. You raised her. You love her. I loved a lot of things that turned out to be lies. Brandon stepped forward, putting his hand on Elise's shoulder in a gesture that was probably meant to be protective, but looked possessive. Maybe you should give her some space, Tom. This is a difficult time. I looked at him. This man who'd helped destroy my marriage, who'd been sleeping with my wife while I changed diapers and paid bills and played house with another man's child. You know what, Brandon? You're right. This is difficult. Burying your mother is difficult. Finding out she helped your wife commit paternity fraud is difficult. Watching your wife's boyfriend comfort her at your mother's funeral? That's not difficult. That's just pathetic. My voice had risen enough to attract attention from other mourners. Good. Let them hear. And you know what else is pathetic? The fact that you think you've won something. You think you got the prize. But what you actually got is a woman who lies about paternity, steals from her employer, and tries to commit vehicular homicide when she doesn't get her way. Congratulations, Brandon. You can have her. I walked away from the graveside, leaving them standing there while my relatives whispered and stared. Let them talk. I was done caring what anyone thought. But the funeral wasn't the end of my family drama. It was just the intermission. 3 weeks later, my sister Patty called with news that made everything else seem simple. Tom, I need to tell you something about Zoe. What about her? She's not Dave's daughter either. The words didn't make sense at first. What do you mean? I mean, Elise lied about that too. I had a friend at the fertility clinic run the records. Dave's samples were destroyed after his loss of life per his will. They were never used. Then whose? According to the clinic records, Zoe was conceived naturally. No IVF, no stored reproductive cell. Elise was never infertile, Tom. She just wanted you to think she was... The room spun around me. Are you saying... I'm saying Zoe might actually be your biological daughter. Elise made up the whole story about using Dave's reproductive cell. She wanted you to think Zoe was his because she knew it would hurt you more. But why would she? I don't know. Maybe she was planning to leave you anyway and wanted to make sure you wouldn't fight for custody. Maybe she's just cruel. But Tom, you need to get a DNA test. I hung up the phone and sat in my empty apartment, trying to process this latest revelation. If Patty was right, then everything I'd believed for the past month was wrong. Zoe might actually be mine. Elise hadn't committed paternity fraud. She'd committed something worse. She'd made me believe I wasn't my daughter's father just to hurt me. The DNA test took 2 weeks to process. 2 weeks of wondering, hoping, and dreading the results in equal measure. When the envelope finally arrived, I stared at it for an hour before opening it. The probability of paternity is 99.97%. Zoe was mine, my daughter, my blood, and I'd walked away from her based on a lie designed specifically to make me do exactly that. The rage that filled me was different from anything I'd felt before. This wasn't about betrayal or humiliation or even revenge. This was about a mother who deliberately separated a father from his child for no reason other than cruelty. I called Mr. Karp immediately. I need to file for emergency custody, and I want to press additional charges against my wife. What kind of charges? Everything. Fraud, emotional mistreat, parental alienation, whatever will stick. She deliberately made me believe I wasn't my daughter's father. Tom, this changes everything. With the DNA results, you have a strong case for custody. But are you sure you want to escalate this further? Your wife is already facing criminal charges for the car incident. She kept me away from my daughter for a month based on a lie. She made me believe I'd been raising another man's child. She destroyed my relationship with my mother and turned my family against me. Escalation is exactly what I want. All right, but understand that this is going to be a war. She'll fight back with everything she has. Good. I'm ready for war. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following month. In the meantime, I was granted supervised visitation with Zoe, which meant I could see my daughter for 2 hours every Saturday in a sterile room with a social worker taking notes. The first visit was heartbreaking. Zoe, now 15 months old, didn't remember me. She cried when I tried to hold her and reached for the social worker instead of me. But by the third visit, she was warming up to me again, playing with the toys I brought and letting me read her stories. "She's a beautiful child," said Mrs. Riggs, the social worker, "very bright for her age." "She gets that from her mother," I said, then immediately regretted it. Even now, even after everything, I couldn't help but acknowledge Elise's intelligence. "You still love her," Mrs. Riggs observed. "Your wife, I mean. I love who I thought she was. The real Elise? I don't even know who that is." Custody battles are hardest when there's still love involved. Hate is clean, love is messy. She was right. If I'd simply hated Elise, this would have been easier. But part of me still remembered the woman I'd married, the one who'd laughed at my jokes and held my hand during movies and told me she wanted to grow old with me. That woman had either never existed or had been destroyed by whatever darkness lived inside Elise. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Carla, Zoe's nanny, called me one evening with information that would change everything. "Mr. Tom, I need to tell you something. About Miss Elise and what she's been doing." "What do you mean, Carla?" "She's been telling people that you hit her, that you hit the baby. She showed me pictures of bruises, said you did it." My blood ran cold. "Carla, I never laid a hand on either of them, never." "I know, Mr. Tom. I've been taking care of Zoe since she was born. I never saw you be anything but gentle with her. And Miss Elise, she gets those bruises from Mr. Brandon. I've seen them together. He's rough with her." "Are you willing to testify to that?" "Yes, sir. I can't let her lie about you hurting that baby. That's not right." With Carla's testimony, the DNA results, and the evidence of Elise's financial crimes, my lawyer felt confident about the custody case. But I wanted more than custody. I wanted justice. "There's one more thing I need to do," I told Mr. Karp. "I want to expose everything publicly. The lies, the fraud, the false accusations. I want everyone to know what kind of person she really is." "That's risky, Tom. Public exposure could backfire. She tried to destroy my reputation with lies. It's time to destroy hers with the truth." "And then what? You get your revenge, but Zoe grows up knowing her mother was publicly humiliated by her father." That gave me pause. In my desire for revenge, I'd almost forgotten that Zoe would someday be old enough to understand all of this. "What do you suggest?" "Win custody. Get your daughter back. Let the criminal charges play out in court, but don't make this a public spectacle. For Zoe's sake." He was probably right. But after months of being painted as an abusive husband and negligent father, the idea of taking the high road felt like another form of defeat. "I'll think about it," I said. But I'd already made my decision. Elise had declared war on me using lies and manipulation. It was time to end this war using the one weapon she couldn't defend against: the truth. The plan came together like a symphony of destruction, each movement building toward a crescendo that would leave no doubt about who had won this war. I'd spent months being reactive, defending myself against Elise's lies and manipulations. Now it was time to go on the offensive. First, I needed to gather all my evidence in one place. The apartment I'd been renting was too small and too temporary. I needed a war room. So I used some of my remaining savings to rent a small office space downtown, officially for Grady Consulting Services, but actually for planning Elise's complete and total downfall. The walls were covered with photos, documents, timelines, and flowcharts that would have impressed a detective. Financial records showing Elise's embezzlement, phone records proving her affair with Brandon, medical records from the fertility clinic exposing her lies about Zoe's paternity, witness statements from Carla, Natalie, and even Mrs. Culpepper, audio recordings of Elise's admissions, video evidence of Brandon's infidelity. It was enough to destroy both of them legally, professionally, and socially. But I wanted more than destruction. I wanted spectacle. The opportunity came when I learned that Elise's company was hosting their annual Women in Business Awards dinner at the downtown Marriott. 500 of the city's most prominent businesswomen, along with their spouses and partners, local media coverage, live streaming on social media, perfect. I spent 2 weeks preparing for the event. I created a professional-looking presentation titled The Hidden Costs of Corporate Fraud and submitted it to the event organizers as a last-minute addition to their program. My credentials as an IT project manager combined with some creative embellishment of my consulting experience got me approved as a speaker. The organizers had no idea they just handed me a platform to expose one of their attendees as a thief and a liar. The night of the event, I arrived early and set up my laptop and presentation materials. The ballroom was elegant, filled with round tables covered in white linens and centerpieces, a stage at the front with a large screen for presentations. It was perfect for what I had planned. Elise arrived with Brandon, both dressed to impress. She was wearing a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, paid for with stolen money. Brandon was in a tailored suit, playing the role of successful businessman instead of the gym rat who helped destroy marriages for sport. They took a table near the front, close to the stage. Even better. I watched from the back of the room as Elise worked the crowd, networking and schmoozing like the consummate professional she appeared to be. Several people congratulated her on her recent engagement to Brandon. Apparently, they'd made it official while I was fighting for custody of my daughter. The irony was perfect. She was celebrating her engagement at the same event where I would expose her as a fraud. The dinner portion of the evening proceeded normally. Speeches about women's empowerment, awards for outstanding achievement, networking, and champagne toasts. I sat at a table in the back, barely touching my food, focused entirely on what was coming. Finally, it was time for my presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, our final speaker of the evening is Tom Grady, a business consultant who's here to discuss the hidden costs of corporate fraud. Please welcome Tom to the stage. Polite applause as I walked to the podium. I could see Elise's face from the stage. Confusion, then recognition, then growing alarm as she realized what was happening. Thank you, I began, my voice calm and professional. Corporate fraud costs American businesses billions of dollars every year. But the real cost isn't just financial. It's personal. It destroys trust, ruins relationships, and leaves innocent sufferers struggling to rebuild their lives. I clicked to my first slide, a photo of Elise at her desk, taken from her company's website. Take, for example, the case of a PR executive who embezzled over $50,000 from her employer to fund an extramarital affair. Gasps from the audience. Elise started to stand, but Brandon pulled her back down, probably hoping to avoid drawing more attention to themselves. This executive used company credit cards for personal travel, falsified expense reports, and even created fake vendors to funnel money into her personal accounts, all to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts for her lover. Click. Financial records showing the fraudulent transactions. But the fraud didn't stop at embezzlement. This same executive committed paternity fraud against her husband, making him believe he wasn't the father of their child in order to facilitate a divorce and avoid custody complications. Click. The fertility clinic records showing no IVF procedures. She then escalated to attempted vehicular homicide when her husband discovered her crimes. Click. Police report and hospital records from my accident. The audience was in shock. Some people were taking photos with their phones. Others were whispering frantically. I could see local news reporters in the crowd making phone calls. And when legal action was taken against her, this executive launched a campaign of false accusations, claiming her husband was abusive and unstable. She recruited family members and friends to support her lies, including forging evidence of domestic violence. Click. Photos of the fake bruises Carla had mentioned, alongside medical records showing they were consistent with makeup, not actual injuries. The cost of this fraud extends far beyond money. It destroyed a family, separated a father from his child, and turned family members against each other. It corrupted the legal system with false accusations and wasted police resources with fabricated crimes. I paused, looking directly at Elise. She was pale, frozen in her chair like a deer in headlights. The executive in question is Elise Grady, currently employed by Morrison and Associates PR, sitting at table 12 with her accomplice and lover, Brandon Holt. The room erupted. People turned to stare at Elise and Brandon. Cameras flashed. Someone started recording video. The MC was frantically trying to figure out how to handle the situation. But I wasn't done. I have copies of all evidence for anyone interested in the details. Financial records, medical documents, audio recordings, witness statements. Everything is documented and verified. The police reports are public record. The criminal charges are pending trial. I clicked to my final slide. A photo of me holding Zoe with the DNA test results clearly visible. This is my daughter Zoe. For months I believed I wasn't her biological father because of my wife's lies. The DNA test proved otherwise. I am her father, and I will not let anyone keep us apart again. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous ovation. People were standing, cheering, some even whistling. It was the validation I'd been craving for months. Elise finally found her voice. "This is harassment!" she screamed, standing up and pointing at me. "He's stalking me! He's obsessed!" "Ma'am," called out one of the news reporters, "do you deny the allegations Mr. Grady has presented?" "I don't have to answer that. This is a setup." "The financial records appear to be authentic," another reporter said. "Do you have a response to the embezzlement charges?" Elise looked around the room wildly, realizing that every face was staring at her with a mixture of shock, disgust, and fascination. She was the center of attention in the worst possible way. "Brandon, do something," she hissed. Brandon, to his credit, tried. He stood up and faced the crowd with the kind of aggressive posture he probably used to intimidate people at his gym. "This man is delusional," he announced. "He's been bothering us for months. He's dangerous." "Sir," called out a reporter, "do you deny having an affair with Mrs. Grady while she was married?" "I don't have to answer that." "What about the allegations that you helped Mrs. Grady embezzle money from her employer?" "This is ridiculous. We're leaving." They tried to make a dignified exit, but it was impossible. The crowd parted around them like they were radioactive, everyone staring and whispering and taking photos. Security guards appeared to escort them out, not for their protection, but to prevent them from disrupting the event further. As they reached the door, Elise turned back and screamed at me, "You'll never see Zoe again! I'll make sure of it!" "Actually," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying clearly across the now silent ballroom, "the custody hearing is next week. I have a feeling it's going to go very well for me." More applause. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Good for you!" and others joined in with supportive comments. After the event, I was surrounded by reporters, business cards, and people wanting to shake my hand. Several attorneys offered their services. A few women slipped me their phone numbers, apparently finding public revenge attractive. But the best part was the text message I received an hour later from Mr. Karp. "Just got a call from opposing counsel. Elise wants to settle. Full custody to you, no alimony. She'll plead guilty to the criminal charges in exchange for probation. Your presentation tonight just won the war." I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in months. The war was over. I'd won. Elise and Brandon were finished professionally and socially. I would get my daughter back. Justice had been served. But as I sat in my apartment, looking at the photos of Zoe on my phone, I realized something important. The revenge had been satisfying, but it wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that I would be able to raise my daughter, to be the father she deserved, and to build a life based on truth instead of lies. The custody hearing the following week was a formality. Elise's attorney barely put up a fight, and the judge awarded me full custody with supervised visitation for Elise. The criminal charges resulted in probation and community service, along with restitution for the embezzled money. Brandon's gym went out of business within a month. His reputation was destroyed, his clients disappeared, and his lease was terminated. Last I heard, he was working at a chain fitness center in another state. Elise moved in with her mother and took a job at a small marketing firm for half her previous salary. Her engagement to Brandon ended shortly after his business collapsed. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new house, larger than the apartment with a yard where Zoe could play, watching my daughter take her first real steps. She was walking from the couch to my outstretched arms, giggling with delight at her newfound mobility. "Dada!" she said clearly, and my heart melted. I'd won more than a custody battle or a revenge campaign. I'd won my daughter's love, and more importantly, I'd won back my own self-respect. I was no longer the man who accepted lies and betrayal in the name of keeping the peace. I was the man who fought for truth and won. As Zoe collapsed into my arms, laughing and babbling, I realized that the best revenge wasn't destroying Elise and Brandon. The best revenge was building a better life without them. But I had to admit, destroying them had been pretty satisfying too. And they say revenge is a dish best served cold. I prefer mine flaming with a side of public humiliation and a generous helping of poetic justice.